Welcome to the Revenue Rewired podcast, hosted by StringCan Interactive's visionary CEO, Jay Feitlinger, and no-nonsense COO, Sarah Shepard. We're here to accelerate your revenue and give your marketing purpose. All right. Hello and welcome, everybody, to this next episode of the Revenue Rewired podcast. I have, don't cry anyone, not Jay today. Don't be so sad. But I have something better. Jessica Fewless. Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
I hope if Jay listens to this, he's going to be really sad. But well, I like bringing experts on, and not that Jay is not an expert, but I think sometimes it's important for people to hear from someone other than Jay or myself on a topic. And you are a veritable expert. I know we don't use that term in our industry, but I'm going to use it anyway because your background is quite impressive. So I think Jessica and I have some juicy stuff for you all today where we would love to talk about how ABM is not a strategy, it's a fight. And I'd like to introduce Jessica, who is a B2B marketing and partnerships leader with 25 plus years of experience building go-to-market strategies, teams, and partner ecosystems that drive growth. That's all a lot of fancy words for saying she's amazeballs. She's led marketing, customer experience, and partner functions at companies like Demandbase and Inverta, authored a book on account-based marketing, which is linked in the show notes, and created an ABM certification program that has trained more than 10,000 marketers worldwide. She's seen ABM work, fail, and knows exactly why. And so, Jessica, welcome to Revenue Rewired.
Thanks so much for having me on, Sarah.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. Well, Jay and I, when we started this podcast, we did put in our show description that we would use little to no jargon. And I think I said sort of in the
Yeah.
description. And I know that ABM is one of those, like our world is so full of jargon and acronyms. It makes me feel like I'm back in my military spouse days. But I would like to explain from your perspective here, what is ABM? Like, what is that? What does that mean technically? And then what is it definitionally?
Yeah. So, it's funny. I mean, I don't know that I've defined it since 2015, but and that's really how I got into the writing of certifications and the book and stuff like that because I worked for Demandbase at the time and we were trying to sell software that helped you do account-based marketing, but nobody knew what it was. Right? They're like,
What a marketing challenge.
right. I mean, technically, I guess, us and Terminus and Sixth Sense, we helped build, quote unquote, build a category, which is, not everybody gets to do it in their career. And I don't know that everybody has the stomach for it. It's a thing, right? Um, but it's actually really fun. It was fun because an employee, I'm a builder, and so building a category was like the next level of building. But to get back to your question about account-based marketing, I think a lot of people are like account-based marketing. Okay, those words make sense, right? You're marketing to accounts. Got it. But beyond that, it was like, well, how do I do that? Right? Because technically everybody's like, well, I do market to accounts today. I have accounts in my CRN and I send them emails, right? Like, that's the same fight we're having today about buying groups because people are like, oh, well, I have buying group members in my CRM and my marketing automation solution and I send them emails. So aren't I marketing to them? But it's a discipline that goes much deeper than that. It
Would you say
starts
it's
with,
a passive versus active kind of thing?
oh, I would say
Like,
it's actually more active than
right,
passive.
right.
I
Like
would
I would say ABM is the most one of the most active tactics, whereas I think
absolutely.
ads are somewhat passive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I would say that ABM is intentional marketing, right?
I like
M-
that.
Most demand gen is just kind of, once again, get your message out there to as many people as possible, and hopefully the people that are in market for your solution or that you could sell to see it. That's kind of what like traditional old school demand gen is, inbound, right? And, the result of that was MQLs, right? And sales was like, or leads even worse, right? And sales was like, cool. Like, this is just garbage, right? Like, You send over 1,000 leads every month and two of them turn into meetings, right? And so then marketers were like, great, so we'll start working on MQLs where it's a little bit more qualified, but it's still just one person and it's absent of, is it a good fit account or not? So that's kind of where ABM came from, was trying to solve for that, these kind of like faceless MQLs showing up versus aligning with your sales team around a set of accounts that you agree are the right set of accounts. They match who your company is most suited to sell to, right? Um, it's the right number of accounts to satisfy sales quota and that marketing has budget to properly market to, right? And that's kind of like the foundation of ABM, right? From there, you can get real fancy. That's where we start talking about one to one versus one to few and one to many, right? And, one to one and one to few don't need a lot of technology. One to many, you definitely need technology to be able to do it at scale, right? And all of those sorts of things. But it's about truly knowing who you want to sell to. Like, I think every college in the United States does marketing majors a disservice by talking about the total addressable market. Nobody should
Mm.
ever talk about a total addressable market. And founders sell the value of their company on total addressable market to VC firms, right? And there are companies that you don't want to sell to, plain
Mm.
and simple, right? There's companies that are just a bad fit. They're not going to be successful with your product. They're going to cost you more than you're going to bring in revenue from them. Those sorts of things. They're going to give your CS team headaches, right? And so I would say even today, even, 11 years on from, or 13 years on from when I started talking about account-based marketing, there's still people who don't know who they don't want to sell to. I don't
That
know
to
if
me
you
is
see that,
insane. I
right?
have, it's actually one of the more eye-opening pieces when we get new clients. And we used to do these big strategy projects, and now we've been able, actually, AI has quite helped us expedite this process because of its ability to do some deep research, of course, human verification. But it was always a very interesting conversation, and an oldish phrase, I guess, is the negative persona. And they
Hmm.
would they would be confused at first as to like, I don't know why there's a person I wouldn't want to sell to. I don't quite understand. And,
Hmm.
it's Dan Sullivan has kind of helped with his 80/20, and, 10x is easier than 2x, with the formula that you should be spending, or getting 80% of your revenue from this 20%. And then we'd say, well, how much energy is this negative persona taking? And typically it would be, a lot. And it was more of the companies that really cared about serving people or creating products that everyone could benefit from were the ones that struggled the most. So there was definitely a heart-based component to sharing this, but it is important from a marketing side to see this is quote a waste of money. This is really not going to get you where you want to go. It might have
Yeah.
gotten you here, but there's a reason why they're a negative persona. But
Yeah.
I'm very curious, when you talk about ABM, it lights me up because in a positive way, because Jay and I really care about sales and marketing alignment. And
Hmm.
recently, in the last, I say recently, maybe about 2 years ago, we fully embraced the sales role is Jay and I'm the marketing role. And we meet every single week. And what's come out of that are some really crazy conversations about how is this happening in our clients' worlds? We're still not savvy or privy, I guess, to a lot of the sales information that their teams have. And so ABM to me feels like the perfect bridge between the two departments. So, in your experience, who is supposed to own that?
You mean the alignment?
Well, even if it's a strategy or suggesting that tactic, because I could see it going both ways, and I'm curious, where does it most often come from?
Yeah. I mean, I think what happens most often is marketing was like, ooh, account-based marketing, great. Like, this is our way to finally see eye to eye with our sales team, right? And marketing went to sales and said, okay, we got an idea. We're going to focus on the same set of accounts. And, and the CRO was like, well, finally, right? Like, They were like, we've always, my reps have always had a target account list, right? Whether it was geographically focused. Now, is it a well-defined target account list, right? Is it backed by data? Maybe not, right? And so hopefully that's what marketing is going to bring to the table to help increase the sophistication of that list, right? But sales has always had some sort of a list that they were working off of. So now they're like, great. So wait, you mean you're going to be bringing me MQLs from the accounts I care about? Oh, well, yeah, sign me up, right? So I think, the shift to ABM typically came from marketing. We did see some sales teams saying, I've heard about this thing. This seems to make a lot of sense. How come we're not doing it? Right. But more often than not, it was started out of the marketing org.
Oh, that's amazing. Sales is like, yeah, thanks for the great idea. We've had that, but glad you're on board now.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
is it's okay. That's kind of how it happens. So you mentioned though, like the targeting of ABM.
Yeah.
Where does that differ? Because we've talked about broad lists in the past, and Jay and I just did a hilarious episode about where he had a meeting with a client. And this was many years ago, obviously. And we delivered a gajillion leads. We hit their goals. And they were like, thanks, but that sucked. And
Yeah.
so here they are wading through a bunch of garbage leads that we were so proud of, and so I could see ABM heading down a dangerous place too, where marketing's like, oh, okay, well, let's just branch this out. Let's expand this. We've got comparison lists. And where does it become how focused do you really need to be? I mean, depending on your business size, of course, but what are we looking at with like a sweet spot?
Well, so I think there's a added level of sophistication to this that we weren't talking about in 2013, but I feel like it's part of the discussion now, which is so you have a target account list, but you have a broader ideal customer profile, right? So because when we started doing ABM, there was this like FOMO that both marketing and sales had that what if somebody we're not targeting wants to buy our product from us, right? So, it's like, okay, so let's think of it this way. Once again, not looking at our total addressable market, but identifying who our ideal customer is, understanding all of the companies that are within that ideal customer profile, and then whittling that down to a target account list that marketing and sales kind of doubles down on. But, your broader demand gen team, your inbound team and stuff, your events team, they're still going to focus on that broader ICP for their activities. You're going to invite your entire ICP to a webinar, right? But when you send your direct mail, you're probably going to focus it on your target account list, right? If you host a field marketing event, you're going to focus on your target account list, right? So I think that is where it kind of helps get everybody's head around, okay, we've got the immediate target account list right in front of us, but then we have these other accounts that still match our ICP that we're going to continue to nurture and warm up so that when they're ready, when they start showing the signs that they're in market, great, then we can just easily just boop, add them to our target account list because they already know who we are. And hopefully then we can convert them even faster.
Mm. So you have mentioned that the changes have been quite extraordinary, just even the last 13 years, which Jay and I this morning we were recording another episode and I brought up, do you remember the days of Ask Jeeves? And he was like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, I feel like that's how you date yourself as a marketer, is you just keep evolving with the tools. If you ever used an AOL disk with minutes on it or, then you belong here. Like you
Well,
can say I've
my
seen some stuff.
my favorite one was I wrote a blog post or a couple of, I don't know, a month ago, and I talked about the evolution of marketing. And it was like, I started when we didn't even have CRMs and we were literally passing spreadsheets of leads back and forth with our sales team. And then somebody was like, did it happen to be a Lotus 123 spreadsheet? And I said, yes, it was. And so I am sure 95% of my audience or my network had no idea what Lotus 123 was, but that's dating oneself.
Oh boy. What's shocking though is there are still people that do that today.
They do. They
Yeah.
do.
which is amazing. But you know, those laggards aside, what's
Yes.
probably the biggest shock that you've seen between writing your book and now in ABM?
I think the capabilities are so monumentally different than what they were back then. You know, intent was like the holy grail in 2019, right? Now we're like, intent is cute. And if you listen to LinkedIn, like intent is dead, right? Like, I think it's just misunderstood. But, it isn't the only signal you should be looking at, right? It should be in combination with a bunch of other things. But I think our ability to be so much more focused in our approach and so much more relevant is just so heightened in 2026 versus when I wrote it back in 2019. When we were talking about one-to-many ABM, we were talking, you know, it's some intent data being able to like, look at some signals and stuff, but we were still talking nurture streams back then. We were still, putting people in segments and kind of giving everybody the same message. Now in 2026, I mean, nobody should have a nurture campaign anymore. It should only be based on signals. So you get a signal from an individual or an account, and it should trigger off some sort of a response in your advertising, in your email, whatever it might be. I mean, there's books out there from before 2019 that talked about, one-to-one ABM. And it was like you would map out a 6-month calendar. And it was like on day one, you do this, and on day five, you do this, and on day 25, sales sends their first outreach. That is not feasible today, right? That is
Mm.
not how you can't force a buyer's journey, right? And buyers are in so much more control of a buyer's journey in a sales cycle now than they ever were. And so now marketing, instead of trying to create demand, we're here to enable buyers to buy from us. Like that, I think, is the fundamental shift from, I guess, 2019 to today. It's like, it's not about demand gen anymore. It's about building and establishing trust digitally, getting yourself on the short list of vendors that your prospect is going to be evaluating, and then being able to hand over to your sales team and say, this is your deal to lose, right? We've done our part. We've educated, we've built the trust. They know who we are, right? This is your deal to lose. So now go win it.
Uh, I love there's so many nuggets I want to pull out of that, and I will for promotional materials later because that was like so mic drop. And if I'm hearing this and I maybe have never really truly invested in this in my company, it feels like a lot of work. So maybe talk about that just a little bit, like either from your perspective, which is slightly biased, like yes, but maybe necessary, or no, and here's where you might be thinking about it wrong.
I'm trying to think of how to answer that.
Or does it really depend on the industry? I mean, can it be industry specific where the way your buyers are signaling,
Yeah.
and I could ask this question was in my head as well, which is the number of stakeholders has gone up exponentially. How is ABM handling that too? That's kind
Well,
of a bigger question.
so that's actually a great question. And, so I used to work with Gabe, who is now the CEO at Demandbase, and he put out a post which caused a very visceral reaction in me, which was buying group marketing is the new ABM. And it's like, no, 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 time out. Wait, time out.
Explain that to me in a different way.
So, to your point, buying groups are getting bigger, right? And this is part of the reason why an MQL became less and less relevant because one person researching you does not a buying group make, right?
Mm.
And you don't have to convince just one person. You have to convince 5, 10, 15 people that you're the right solution, right? And so, you know, he said, well, okay, forget ABM. Now we're just going to focus on buying groups. What
Uh,
I would argue is that, okay, so we had the lead, the MQL. So we were over rotated on the individual. Then we came out with account-based marketing and we were like, great. So here's an account that's ready to buy from you. And I remember distinctly salespeople going, cool. That account's always been on my target account list. who am I supposed to talk to? And we were like, well, it's the account. The account is showing signals, so go figure it out, right? You're laughing because,
Oh,
yep.
yeah.
So now we've kind of swung back to the middle where it's like, okay, yes, we want to first and foremost, we want to make sure we're it's an account we care about, but then we need to build out the buying group within that account. We need to engage multiple stakeholders. We need to make sure that the champion and the influencer and the budget holder and the decider right are all on the same page that your solution is the right one, right? So
Almost like a buying group inside of your ABM strategy
ding ding
is a
ding.
level within a level, right?
That is exactly it. That it's just another level of sophistication of your account-based marketing, right? To your point, does it add complexity? 100% it does, right? But here's the thing. Everybody in your marketing organization should be focused on the right accounts and buying groups, right? So it shouldn't just be an ABM specialty anymore, right? So now
Mm.
you've got an entire team. If they all have the same focus on the right accounts and buying groups, they're building the right materials for those various buying group members at varying stages of their buyer's journey, right? Now it's a matter of artfully stitching it together and once again, allowing the signals from your buyers to indicate what you should be sending them at what time. Once again, not easy. It is kind of a messy matrix to get there, but, you know, AI is going to help you with, atomization of assets and those sorts of things to help you build out more versions of these things. It's going to help you with all the signal collection and direction, right? And orchestration of these campaigns. So is it work? Absolutely. Is it a little bit more work before it's less work? Yes, it is. But
Well, that's the game though, right? Is yeah, where are you going to put in a little extra work so that it's a little
mhm.
easier on the output versus guessing? At least you're intentional.
Yes. Yes. And everybody's like, oh, isn't this so expensive? And it's like, no, if you do it well, it's actually less expensive than just doing traditional broad-based marketing, right? Because you know where to spend your money and you
Hmm.
direct it there.
So how are they executing? Is this, I think some listeners might think of ABM as like, I've gotten a book in the mail or something tangible, or they used to call it bulky mail. I, I believe in some cases, maybe misunderstood or not, was
Totally.
synonymous with ABM. What's
Yes.
your take on that?
Oh, the number of times was that an audible sigh? I think it was. Um,
Video clip, audio clip.
the number of times I see people say, oh, I'm doing one-to-one ABM in advertising. It just it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. It's like,
Mm.
okay, just because you're sending a personalized ad to an account, right? A capability that's within LinkedIn, that's not ABM. That is just good personalization. I don't even know if it's good personalization. It's just personalization, right? But really, what we need to shift the conversation to is not just personalization, but rather relevance, right? Being relevant to your audience. Like, I don't care that you scraped my LinkedIn profile and know that I went to Marquette University and that, I'm, however many years old and, have a dog named Pete. Like, I don't care that you know all those things about me. What I care about is that you understand where I am in my journey and the struggle that I'm having and that I am the champion and I need to convince my CFO to spend the money on this. That's what I need you to understanding. And that's the kind of marketing I need you to be doing to me, right?
So you're almost saying like ABM is so much different than personalization is a piece of it. And I think this is also a misunderstood part of ABM is that it's just hyper personalization. No, it's relevance,
Mhm.
signals, and intent that coupled with personalization make you an obvious choice for their problem.
Yes, yes. And when sending me a direct mail piece, cool. That is a tactic. And that is a tactic people have used for years. That is not ABM. What's ABM is when you're sending me ads, emails, a direct mail piece, you're inviting me to a workshop or a webinar, blah, 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 that all match my profile, right? And you're also sending a similar but slightly tweaked version to, my boss to make sure, because they're an influencer or potentially the eventual decider, right? And we're seeing the same message across all different channels, right? That is when you're doing ABM, right? Just one tactic isn't it? And sending everybody the same thing on day 45 isn't it? Right?
Do you think then there's maybe a little bit of a challenge with the naming of this tactic, which is account-based marketing, because it always has been just more of a person. The account is maybe the umbrella of the communication. Like these people work for this company and I want to help this company. But as marketers are finding out, I feel like every week the human side of the person who is trying to purchase from you is almost separate, but
Mhm.
inextricably linked with the account. Is
Right.
that creating even like, I feel like it's better opportunities because getting the individuals who are good at updating their LinkedIn and there's always more information and signals. Like there are a couple tools that are insane. Like the minute someone changes their job title, boom, signal.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
liking a post, boom, signal.
Right.
There is like a separation between the person and the account. And so how
Yeah.
does that get reconciled a little bit?
If I'm being honest, did we misname the discipline? Probably. Right? Like, because a lot of marketing teams, well, no, I take that the other way. Sales teams became allergic to the phrase because they're like, great, so this is a marketing thing. And
Mm,
so that whole ideal of it bringing sales and marketing closer together actually backfired because it's like, well, cool, it's a program you're going to do. So I'm going to keep doing my thing over here and you're just going to focus on the same accounts that I care about. Great. Right. So it did nothing to actually align the two sides. Um, I don't know what we would have called it, right? I mean, like people have called it account-based experience, account-based marketing and sales, and honestly, the, I've seen strategic account something or I mean, there is a million different names for it. We needed to call it something to break marketers of the bad habits of traditional demand gen. We
mm,
needed to call it something so that people stood up and went, oh, this is a different way to do marketing, right? In a perfect world, demand gen marketers would have just adopted these types of practices and done their demand gen better, but that wasn't enough to get people's attention to make the shift. So we had to call it something else, which is why I'm
that's
saying
fascinating.
now it really should just be the way you do demand gen.
So if you were to give it a new name though, as a tactic within demand gen, which I know I'm not trying to debase it by calling it a tactic, but if you could
No,
give
no,
it a
no.
new name, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, you could take a pass, but what would you call it?
Well, that's a really good question. I think I don't mind the focus on accounts, right? Because underlying it is the fact that we're focused on buying groups within those accounts. So I like account being the first and foremost because you can attract a person, but if they're not at an account you care about, who cares? So the account has to come first, but it's almost like account buying group marketing, like now knowing what we know. That's a
Mm.
mouthful. I don't know that I would call it that. So nobody,
It'd
that's not the
become an
next
acronym
That's
anyways.
not the next three-letter acronym that we're going to come out with. But because we also on the back end, right? So we've got accounts and like we went from the MQL to the MQA, the marketing qualified account, right? And now I hear people talking about marketing qualified buying groups.
Mm,
So now I would argue you build in the buying group completeness and engagement into the marketing qualified account, but that's not a hill I'm going to die on, right? If people need
mm,
to call it a marketing qualified buying group, and maybe I think the way they think about it as a marketing qualified account is the account is showing intent signals, the account like overall. And then when they identify who the individuals are, that are engaging and they're engaging more people and they have, it's not just this account level activity, but now they've got the individuals. That's when they call it a marketing qualified buying group. So I
Mm.
think that's the delineation. So it's just another step in kind of that buying journey.
Well, that makes sense to me because the whole, in my mind, I'm just picturing a bunch of dominoes, where you've got individual intents and signals, and those are a piece of it, but that is not signaling a buying group's intent and signal. And
Right.
then you need to ensure relevance within those buying groups. And then the whole account needs to be, frankly, open to the opportunity and the experience in the first place. Otherwise, it's all for naught. So,
Right.
it is a very intentional step-by-step process. Where do you see people often give up on this too soon? Like Jay and I have often shared, and a lot of marketers know this, it just takes time, especially with something where you've got a large audience, data gathering and sifting takes time. And unfortunately, with ads, your budget is going to either help or hurt that. If you don't have a lot of budget, it's going to take a hot minute for remarketing audiences to be available, for
Yeah.
example. So, where do you see people maybe give up too soon on it?
Yeah. I mean, so what we're seeing from the data and Forrester and Gartner and like Sixth Sense puts out a report every year, what we're seeing in the data is that 80+% of the buying journey is now happening behind the scenes, right? So
Signal free, you mean?
not signal free necessarily, but before anybody wants to talk to your sales team,
Mm.
right? So the way most companies look at it is marketing does like it's kind of the 80/20 rule in reverse. They see that marketing does their part and they, brand awareness, yada yada. It's the salespeople who get their attention and get them through and into and I would argue it's flipped. Now, 80% of it, marketing owns that conversation. Marketing needs to engage all the buying group members. Marketing needs to establish that trust in your brand, right? It's not just brand marketing, but it's actually establishing trust through what you put out, kind of messaging, the fact that you recognize who they are, where they are in the buyer's journey, and deliver the relevant messaging. All of that is happening in that 80%. The research shows that by the time somebody talks to your sales rep, you're narrowed down to like two or three other competitors, right?
Gosh, that's crazy.
Which is crazy, especially even in 2025. What we saw all over the industry was people laying off marketing teams and hiring more salespeople, which is exactly the opposite of what they should be doing. So, where I'm going with this is how they give up too soon is because they're like, well, great. So, like, we don't know what's happening, in that like 80%. Like, there's signals and there's blah, 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 but we don't know what's happening because nobody's talking to us. Right? So they get
Mm.
frustrated and they go, "Great, we're gonna do a blitz day with our SDRs to get people to talk to us." And like, once again, that's not how it works today. The buyer will reach out to you when they're ready and not the other way around. And
Gosh.
so,
The
yeah.
case for alignment is just made more and more each day. Like, if you don't have a consistent experience with both of those departments, which is where
Mhm.
RevOps is really getting a good name for itself, where it's trying really hard to align a lot
Yeah.
of groups, not just sales and marketing. But that to me is like, oh man, if you aren't seeing in the market what you're hearing from the SDR, then I'm like, am I talking to the same company? I'm confused.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, honestly, I think within 5 to 7 years, like the SDR functions can go away. I
Hmm.
hate to say it.
For what?
Well, because marketing is going to get more and more sophisticated at owning that conversation, right? And they're just
Mm.
going to and buyers, they're owning the buying journey, not being guided. They're owning it, right? So they're going to own more and more and more of it. And so when they reach out, they don't want to talk to an SDR. They've already done their research. They don't need a demo. They don't, right? They just want to talk to the sales rep so that they can get down to brass tacks and figure out which of the three solutions they're going to go with, right?
Do
They
you
don't.
think SDRs are going to become marketers then because they'll have that inside scoop?
Possibly. I don't know that we're going to need that outbound calling function.
Mm.
anymore. I don't know. I mean, that's just because so much of it is happening digitally, and then, and we're also going to see the true sales cycle, that's going to come down. If people aren't already seeing that in their data, which most of our clients are, is that, that the number of days from first contact with sales to deal close or close won or lost is coming down. Because once again, they don't have to tell them about the features of their product. They don't have to give them a demo. They don't have to do any of that type of stuff. The buyer already knows all that. They're just looking
Which,
for the SOW, the proposal, the whatever it is in your world, um, to understand the dollars and cents of it all, and then compare contrast with their other options.
and my very specific and nuanced questions, about here's how this went for me in the past, or,
Yeah.
here's a very specific type of old software that I need to integrate. And how is
Yeah.
that going to work, or whatever the issue is. I do wonder how we're going to be able to track those sales cycles in the future, because they are going to be so in the background, and like it's going to be like a ghost sales cycle, and
Hmm.
then the actual sales cycle. So I agree with you. It's fun and fascinating, and I'm sure if you could go back and look at like yourself and see a version of yourself, like a what's oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Scrooge, I think, like a ghost
Oh,
version of
yes.
yourself in 2019, and say, "Wow, girl, if you could just look at yourself in 7 years and see where this industry and this
Mhm.
space is going, it will blow your mind."
Yeah,
Kind of fun.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, do you have any last nuggets for our listeners to blow their mind? Like any, some of the hang-ups that you hear a lot, or just how to make this a simple conversation to have with your leadership team, how to reevaluate. And to me, it sounds like having a partner who really understands the whole process would be very beneficial. But where would someone even start with this conversation?
It's not an easy one because we've done such a good job of training our sales counterparts on the old versions of marketing, right? And old habits die hard, right? I mean, there's still sales teams out there that are like, how come we're not getting as many MQLs as we used to? Even though we didn't like them, we liked having more of them because it felt better that like, right?
Mm.
It's really hard. Like I said, there's a lot of data coming out there now. Like both Forrester and Gartner have really been talking up the value of buying groups and stuff over the course of the last 2, 3 years, right? And have come out with a lot of data on how, like, I think showing your sales counterparts or your CEO the way that buyers are buying differently now, they can't ignore the need to shift, right? Once again, if 80% of the buying journey is happening now behind the scenes, right? Who do they think owns that conversation?
Spoiler
It's
alert, it's marketing.
right. And if they're going to argue with you over it, well, then maybe that's not the organization. If you truly believe in that, then maybe that's not the organization for you to work for. I mean, I honestly at 3 decades into my career now, like I just don't have it in me to convince people that like don't want to look at the data. I don't have it in me. I'm like, I'm gonna go somewhere else because this is just too like fine. You guys keep doing you over here, and I'm gonna go somewhere where people get it, and I'm gonna go be wildly successful.
Mm. Yeah, no
Right?
rope uphill for you, girl.
Now I've been there, I've done that, and I don't have it in me anymore. I've tried it, and no, it's just not worth it.
So it
So,
sounds like you kind of really need to admit what you don't know just as much as what you do know, but be
mhm,
open to being somewhat ignorant and having someone teach you about this process and this tool, because that's really what it is it's part of a larger scheme of things. As we're seeing, I mean, if you're not keeping on top of buyer behavior, that is what's changing the most. We're just
mhm.
finally catching up to it. It's
Yep,
already been there. Marketing
totally.
is like, okay, now I actually need to start doing something about this because it's not going away.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yeah. So hopefully CFOs and CEOs and boards are going to start getting the memo, right? Like stop divesting of your marketing function. That is in fact where you should be investing the most. Um, because otherwise you're just going to see that pipeline just dry on up. And then you're
Mm.
going to blame marketing for it, which is always the fun part.
It's
Oh,
hard when they're not there.
right, right. When they don't have any budget to spend and there aren't any people in the department, but we'll blame them anyway.
Oh gosh. I know it is it's hard, and I actually was just writing today about clients that have been burned and stuff, and I appreciate the PTSD. I really do. But it's even I've been burned horrifically by companies, and I've still continued to work with them because they did a good job of repairing the relationship and whatnot. And so you can't, I don't think, never say never. It really truly is, if you've never considered this as a strategy before, maybe now's your chance. And you've heard from an excellent expert on the topic. So this is kind of your wake up call, people.
I like it.
Well, and if they want to learn more, your book is on Amazon, correct?
It is. Yes, it's still out there. I was
Woo!
shocked when I looked the other day, but I am going to start writing some revisions for how it looks now in 2026. I think the core principles and the foundations are still right, but I think it takes a different flavor here in 2026.
You got more fun, shiny objects to add to the tool list, right?
Oh God, no. No. If I have one piece of advice for everybody is please stop signing multi-year software contracts.
Why is that?
Just stop doing it because everything is evolving so quickly these days, right? And what you need and what the capabilities are, like whether, if they're legacy software companies, are they really able to keep up? That's a big
Mm.
question. And even if they're AI native, they're leapfrogging each other daily with
Oh.
who's got the latest thing and functional. I mean, you just look at the like, ChatGPT versus Gemini versus Claude. I mean, like, do not get attached to any one of them because on any given day, one of them is going to be better than another one at a thing. And then the next day, a third one is going to suddenly leapfrog the other two. And it's just like, so you just got to be curious and willing to just roll with it for the next 5 years
Probably longer if
and
we're
probably
honest.
longer. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's fair. You got to be agnostic. I've switched tools, I would say at least weekly because I'm like, I'm annoyed by you. I'm going to move on. I have no loyalty. Like even this week, I was a Claude convert, and now I'm like, might have to go back to chat. Will it take me back? Of course it will.
Right. It will, but it's hard.
That's good
It's hard.
advice.
So, I mean, I see clients who are like tied into a 3-year deal with their marketing automation provider or their ABM platform. And I'm like, ooh,
Mm,
that's a
that's
tough
rough.
pill to swallow.
All right. Well, that's excellent advice. So, if you all have any questions for Jessica, we'll put her LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And Jessica, this we could talk about this all day long. Like I
I
got
think we
so
could.
fired up with you, and I'm really loving it. So, I look forward to your follow-up to your book in
Yeah,
digestible nugget form. And I really appreciate you.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been a great conversation.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to the Revenue Rewired podcast. Send us your questions to podcast@stringcaninteractive.com and follow us for more insights to drive your business forward.